I personally, my bike was stolen twice by a bear. So the stereotypes, they are based on something.
Attempts for people to characterize your events as like quote-unquote pro-Russian propaganda.
A seeker will always find what he's looking for.
Everyone has, first of all, a right to free speech, which actually we do have in the UK. So
in my mind, right, you have to stop the fighting in here and in here.
Yeah.
You know, if
It's
you
very
want to
tough.
stop the fighting out there,
do it right now.
do it right now,
Yeah.
or the KGB will come after you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or after us, so please.
You're watching The Atheniano Show, where each episode is a new ripple containing unknown but unlimited impact. Today, I am joined by the president and vice president of the Russian-Speaking Society of Edinburgh, Andrey and Polina. So thank you guys so much for being here. I really look forward to this conversation, and I think it's going to be wonderful. But before we begin, why don't you guys take a moment to tell the audience a little bit about yourselves so they can connect to you.
Do you want to go first?
Okay, yeah, I'll go first. Well, first of all, Ethan, thank you for having us. Hello, everybody, whoever is watching. My name is Andrey. I am a postgraduate student studying at Glasgow University. This is my first year as being a member of the committee of the Russian-Speaking Society. I used to be a member before that, starting from the second semester of my first year, but due to COVID and the pandemic afterwards, my proper year of, being fully engaged with the society was started only last year of my final year of undergraduate studies.
So my name is Polina. I am the president of the Russian-Speaking Society. And I've been in the society as a member since my second year because my first year was in COVID, so I never really had a chance to actually visit any activities. But then in my second year, I was a member, and in my third year, I was already part of the committee as a treasurer, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I decided that since it's my last year, why not become a president? Why not take even more responsibility? So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, I guess my first question for you guys is, we're in the UK at Edinburgh, right? We're in a country apart from Russia. Why do you think it's necessary for there to be a Russian-speaking society where Russians can come and speak in the UK?
I mean, in my personal experience, I myself, me and my family, we moved to Finland when I was 11. So I was already kind of not forced, but I had to adapt to a new culture. I was within Finnish culture. I had to study language. I had to study the cultural aspects of the history of the country to assimilate into the Finnish culture. And by the time I moved to Scotland to start studying here, this was my first experience of living in an English-speaking country. And no matter how great people were that I met during my first year of studying both in and outside the university, I still had certain issues in terms of feeling myself home here and finding really good friends. And luckily enough, I got acquainted with the Russian-speaking society at the University of Edinburgh, which provided me with an opportunity to meet wonderful people and to actually get familiarized and get new friends who share the similar cultural background as I do. So that's maybe the crucial and the main point of having not only Russian-speaking society in general, but all types of societies that represent a particular ethnical and cultural groups of people.
So it's like a home within a foreign land.
Sort of, yeah. I could
It's
say
sort of
that.
like, even though, for example, I moved to Scotland when I was 12, so I had an experience of living in Scotland for 6 years before I went to uni. It was still the same for me coming to uni. It's a very stressful experience for everyone. And I think when you have this opportunity to sort of connect to the people who maybe speak the same language as you or share the same sort of origins or culture, you just feel a bit more, as I said, like home within university, and it just makes it And I think that's the same purpose for any other society, to sort of make this ease of transferring from school to uni more comfortable, more smooth.
Okay. And then why did you guys specifically choose to run for president and vice president respectively, especially at a time when there's a lot of controversy surrounding Russia and the society and the university and in general? Why did you decide to become president and vice president at this time?
If I can start answering that, I mean, for me, it was when I joined the society, like, but just as a member first, I remember seeing how cool and amazing it is that there is an event, which is just like a bar event or a activities event, where you have so many people who come, not just from Russia, but from so many Russian-speaking countries, who share sort of similar, but at the same time quite different background, and they all come to the same event. They all speak your language. They all talk about their experiences, and it was just so amazing for me, because before I lived in a smaller city where you mainly had just Scottish people, and it was so amazing for me to see so many people coming from different backgrounds and just sharing this experience and, you know, communicating and enjoying this communication. And when I became a treasurer in the committee, it was another amazing experience to organize these types of events, to be able to actually provide like a place and an activity for people to connect, to talk about their experiences, to just make friends. And I just, I felt like I really wanted to do more. I was like, I've really enjoyed being in the committee. I want to do even more, because it's a good experience. It's a very positive experience for most people that come to the events. Well, I think for all people that come to the events. It's kind of...
I personally just wanted to have fun. By the time we had the elections, I didn't get an answer from Uni of Edinburgh regarding my application. I applied for a postgraduate program at the Uni of Edinburgh as well, and based on this decision, I could kind of like decide whether I was eligible to apply for a, how's it called, the
executive?
To an executive position or non-executive position. Basically, luckily for us, we didn't have many of applicants, so it was just, you know, rather a certain kind of like we had just to come to a final agreement between ourselves in terms of who will be responsible for which position. And by the time the elections ran,
just to clarify, not that many applicants to become committee members.
Yeah. So we were expecting to receive way more applicants, but I think we got only like just enough to fill all the positions. To fill the committee. Yeah, just enough to fill all the positions.
And why do you think that is?
I think our society, I think one of the main problems is that our society really became like active only technically last year. So before COVID, we didn't have any events at all. It would be like one event a year or something. Well, we had events, but there were not as many, and it would kind of just be random. And then there was COVID, and then the first normal year was 21 to 22. Yes, 21 to 22. And that's when it just started. And then the second year was last year, so 2022 to 2023. And that was our first actual year when we had an event like every single week. So it's kind of, we just starting again from the beginning. And I think that's the main reason, because you also have this thing of like people come from different countries to study here and then they go back to their country. So it's a lot of, I don't know how to say, recycling of, essentially. So you don't have the same people staying for a long period of time. So sometimes people come, they're new members, and they're like, okay, I'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll apply for a committee. So I think with societies like this, it's always a bit less.
Yeah. And from my personal perspective, perhaps some of the former or current members of the society might agree with me, but most of the times what happened was before the last year. So the society provided, say, it organized a couple of events at the beginning of the year just to give a chance to continuing and new students to get to know each other. And after which, people just started forming small groups of friends within which they just kept, going out and organize something on their own. And the society stepped on the second or even third plan in their like student experience lives. They basically got what they wanted to. They got a group of friends who share perhaps similar values, interests, who come from the similar backgrounds. And once they found those type of people who are they happy to be friends with, they didn't need society anymore. And on the other hand, the society itself did not provide anything in exchange in terms of the socials. So, and again, as I started having to keep having fun, was that last year I was amazed by the job that was done by the former committee in terms of all of the events that was organized. I luckily had an opportunity to co-organize some of the events. I hosted one of them and then just helped, and I was lucky enough to see what's been happening behind the curtains. And I don't know, the energy we had, the inflow of fresh flesh, fresh blood of members who were eager and who were passionate, who were at some point very horny in a good way to keep coming to the socials. And the inflow and outflow of energy was just amazing comparing to the previous years. And I just thought that since I'll be staying here for another year, I'd really love to keep this flow of energy and do my best to make sure that we will not reach the better level of organization and providing better socials, we would still kind of maintain the same level of it.
So both you guys talked about the events that you wanted to be a part of and plan and going forward. I want to touch on that a little bit later, but I just want to ask one quick thing about the title. So you guys are the Russian Speaking Society.
Yeah.
Why not the Russian Society?
I think we used to be Russian Society.
Yeah, I can answer that if you want. Yeah,
go ahead. Yeah.
We used to be Russian Society. I don't know when the society was created, so I don't know how far back it goes. But I think, to be honest, when the society was created, it was a more laid back thing. It wasn't as popular, so they didn't exactly think about the title. They were just like, okay, well, probably was Russian students from Russia who created the society. So they were like, okay, we're from Russia. Let's name it Russian Society. And that was just like the easiest option. But in reality, why we changed the change of the name was kind of needed for some time, because for the past 3 years for sure, and I think maybe 2 years before COVID, as long as I know, from stories of other people, it was always people coming from not just Russia, just countries like Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Kazakhstan, so mostly post-Soviet countries. So it didn't really just reflect on Russian people. It would be people coming from Russian-speaking countries. So it was sort of a change that was needed for a long time, but it only happened now. And I think, in my personal experience, it's actually a better title for our society, because I think that was a problem before as well. When, for example, people who would come, like me, because I come from Latvia, who would see Russian society and they're like, okay, maybe it's just for Russians, maybe it's just people coming from Russia, maybe I shouldn't come to the events. So I think it was just a change that was needed for a long time.
It shouldn't be focused only directed at a particular ethnic group, but rather for the people who come from various backgrounds, but what we share together is a language we speak. It shouldn't be mother tongue in particular. I think there were a couple of cases when we had some of the members who...
Quite a lot, actually.
I mean, quite a lot of members whose mother tongue was not Russian, who were either just learning Russian. They didn't even come from some post-Soviet Union countries. They were coming from
we had
all over the world.
Scottish people who would come. We had actually Russian lessons last year, and we had Scottish people who were learning Russian. Some people who were, for example, with backgrounds to the post-Soviet countries, like their parents were born there, but they were actually born in Scotland, so they wanted to keep learning the language. So it was a bit of everything. So it was never Russian society.
Great. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about your events and what you're planning to do during the school year. So why don't you tell me, what kind of events are you planning on hosting? What kind of events have you hosted in the past? Tell me, what is the gist of what the Russian Society is going to do this year?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, you can start.
Well, I mean, during the past year, apart from the regular ones where we give an opportunity to people to get to know each other, the former committee organized several events which were a reflection of various games, such as Pub Quiz, for example, as one of the first ones we had, and then the game of Mafia. I'm not sure if it's called the same way in.
No, I don't remember the name in English. There is a similar game.
It's an international. It's like a card
Mafia.
game.
Oh, is it the same? Because I
Yeah.
know there's like a similar game, but it's a different title. But I can never remember the title.
Yeah.
Where you like try to find the person.
Yeah.
who's-
Yeah. So
it's Mafia.
every member, there is like a host who is not involved in the game itself. He just makes sure that all the rules are being followed. I had a feeling that, correct me if I'm wrong, but since it was a completely new committee, the background the background of the site, it was not very good in terms of getting people involved into coming on different socials. I had a feeling that you guys had some kind of a plan to organize at the beginning some basic events, and then based on the response from the members, how like the inflow of members, you'd then decided on how, let's say, rough you would go in terms of organizing some more, let's say, not harder but more complicated events.
Because last year we had, again, it was more of a beginning again. So we organized something for every single week, but then we based it on how popular certain events would be, and then we adjusted to whether we should host this event or not. But it was mostly most of our events, regular ones, are like bar socials, or just even, well, used to be in TV before it closed, very unfortunately. We would just have like socials for just people to talk, and if they want to buy a drink, if they don't, just nothing, just sit and talk. And then our popular, again, the game Mafia was popular because it's just a game that I think a lot of people know, and it's easy to have large groups playing it. We had an event of Что, где, когда, which is like a Russian intellectual show, and we hosted it between our members. It was very popular. We hosted it once, and then we hosted it again with Russian-speaking societies of Glasgow University and St. Andrew's University. And then we had a ball with the Spanish Society. So a general event would be just socials where people can talk, and then every month or so something more interactive, like a game show or a game night, or even better, a ball, or a society, meeting with other universities. So kind of
collaborating
like that. Collaborations.
Well, basically last year what it did, it provided us with the tremendous experience, and based on the overall feedback from, for example, as Polina said, this intellectual game, which like directly translated is what, where, and when. We have lots of TV shows which were part of nearly every member's childhood, and we could easily adapt them within the society. We could easily not entirely adapt them, but take some of the ideas and create something
Just
maybe
host,
new based on it.
And even if it's something, a show that you didn't watch, for example, that happened with Что, где, когда, the show, because we had members who were like, oh, what is this? We don't know the show, but you still enjoyed the game even if you don't know the show. So it was like that. And it's similar going to be for this year. We don't want to like reveal any events in advance, but because we don't want to promise something that's not going to happen. But it would just be a combination of socials where people can just talk and meet other people. And then every month or so, a more active event, like another game show or possibly a ball, and more bigger events. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
What's the process for planning these kinds of events? Like, do you need to get them approved in advance? Do you plan them a week ahead? Like, what's the process?
Most of the times it just came out of the blue. Just during some random conversation, it just snapped in my head. I'm like, oh, let's do this.
The problem is that you have a lot of ideas, but then you're like, how am I going to fit them within? Because you think, oh, you have a whole year, but in reality, just hosting one event a week, it's so much work. Even when it's just like renting a room for Mafia game, you need to get a room, be there early to set it up, make sure nothing goes. So I think we start the year with a lot of ideas, and then we just base them on how we can manage them.
We just realistically assess.
We try to plan as much in advance, like room bookings, places bookings. If we need any person who's going to speak, like an external speaking, book everything that needs to be booked in advance. And then everything else just kind of happens chaotically the week before, like, oh, you get this, you get that, you get that. And that's it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you did some collaboration with other Russian societies in Scotland, and also like you did something with the Spanish society. How often do you collaborate with other societies, both within Edinburgh and also in Scotland, or is that kind of like a one-off type of thing?
Do you mind if I?
Yeah, no.
Well, I mean, there's so when it comes to, say, societies that are based on a particular, which are targeted at a particular ethnical or cultural groups, it's a little bit different when it comes to collaborations comparing to the sports societies. I think from my personal experience, because I used to be a member of my undergrad university basketball team, so we did also lots of collaborations with various sports societies, and I had a feeling that when it comes to sports, it's way easier to organize, to do some type of collaborations. When it comes to for example, cultural societies such as Russian-speaking societies, whatever, it feels that it's a little bit harder in terms of, because the main point of Russian-speaking society is to allow people to come to the events, and whether the Russian is their mother tongue, to speak it, to meet new friends, meet new people, or if they're learning, to perhaps try to speak it, or develop your language skills. We surely will try to collaborate again with the Russian-speaking societies of other universities, because it will, in our opinion, will bring way more interest and attraction, and of course it will allow us to make something big, and not like a huge event, but some type of like bigger event. When it comes to collaborating with, for example, again, Spanish society or other societies, I think it will utterly depend on what type of event we will be organizing. And this is perhaps some type of like a cornerstone in our experience, because it needs to be perfectly fit for both of the societies, with its meaning and with its purpose.
Just add to that, I think it's easier for sports societies to organize because they get, at least in University of Edinburgh, as far as I know, they just get a bit more support from the university, and I think a bit more funding, but don't mark my words for that because I don't know for sure. Whereas whereas the language societies, they kind of exist based on their own will, and because it's just a lot of people who came up and are like, okay, let's make a society. So obviously it's harder because all you have is your own resources.
And so even though that you guys are the Russian-speaking society and you're about Russian language, have you gotten, and do you anticipate any backlash or anticipate any controversy from other members of the community or within other societies about attempts for people to characterize your events as quote unquote pro-Russian propaganda, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's not a secret that we had this problem throughout the whole of last year. Our events were characterized all the time like this or like that. Was always some sort of opinion on our events. And honestly, this year, I don't see why. We've been clear about our position since 2022, since spring 2022. Our events, and when we post them, we post information about them, we post descriptions about them, and what's in the description of the event is what the event is about. And if you go for our post, it's never, today we're going to discuss, I don't know, the politics in Russia, or today we're gonna talk about, it's never in the description, it's never characterized by us like that. And I think from people who come to the event, they can also tell that the event is not about that at all. But people always, I think, form their opinions. Sometimes they maybe try to force their opinions on other people. And we've had that throughout the whole year. We try to defend ourselves. We try to communicate with people who would do that. It didn't get to anywhere, because if a person wants to talk, they talk to you and they actually, communicate, discuss this, and it's the end of that. When it's just backlash without any without being based on anything, then it just never goes anywhere and it just never stops. But this year, I mean, we exhausted all of our words last year to talk about it. So I don't see if anything happens this year. My personal opinion, we're just gonna say we're just not gonna say anything
Ignore it,
because
yeah.
it just
Yeah.
it just I don't know. I think we've had enough last year. But
It just feels sometimes it's pointless to change one's opinion if one doesn't want to do that. You know, people. I mean, I think there's a saying: a seeker will always finds what he's looking for. And when it comes to say portraying our, portraying our events in like seeing our events, our social as a part of some pro-governmental propaganda, well, you can't do much about that. If it lets those type of people sleep better, then so be it.
Obviously, it would be different if we actually had like pro-Russia propaganda or something happen. Then obviously it's our responsibility. But when there's nothing even linked to that and person still sees that, well, then it's obviously the person's sort of viewpoint.
Depending on the severity of accusations, of course, when it comes, say, if it's not just, a private individual's opinion, but rather a quite strong position of a society or of any other organizations, then perhaps we need to step forward and, have a conversation about that, defend ourselves, because we don't really want people think that we want just to make sure that people will get both of the perspectives, and then based on the information they'll be provided with, they will make their own decisions.
Like last year, we're always open to talk. We never ever denied any conversation. So it's going to be the same this year. If something happens, we're always welcome to talk.
And just to be clear, what kind of accusations or stuff, like, has there been any attempt to shut down the society? Like, what are we just talking like, we should condemn the society, or has there been actually attempts to shut down the society?
There were attempts, several societies. I actually don't know how many, but basically several societies tried to reach to USA, which is Edinburgh University Student Association, and just sort of say they weren't happy with the society, we want to close it. But and they would send a few accusations, but each time USA would contact us, say, do you have anything to respond to us? Which is a very great communication from USA, because USA throughout the whole last year, they always gathered opinions from both sides. Every time a society would say something, we don't like this about the society, they would always reach out to us for us to give our view, which is amazing. We really, really like that. And it would be a few societies contacted USA saying that we don't think Russian-speaking society should exist, or that it should, continue ongoing. USA would ask them why. They would provide the reasons. USA would discuss it with us. And in the end, it would all come down to the reasons provided were not efficient to close any type of society. I can give an example, it would be our logo. Many did not like our logo because it had flags of certain countries. They tried to close it based on that.
For those who don't know, what is the logo?
So it's a matryoshka, which is like a
it's a
doll.
Russian cultural doll.
Yeah.
It's made of wood, and it has, so when you open it, there's a smaller version of it, and smaller.
Yeah. And it had, I don't remember how many countries exactly, mostly post-Soviet countries' flags on inside the matryoshka, which is exactly the same for pretty much every single Russian-speaking society throughout the UK. None of the other societies ever got any backlash for it. It was just us. But people would...
We were just the scapegoats.
Yeah. But people would say... That was one of the arguments.
Another one is tea time.
Let me finish it. He just wanted to say that.
I just wanted to say that, yeah.
Yeah, and we got backlash for that. USA would say, okay, what do you think about this logo? We would say that it's not... So one of the arguments would be it's the countries that are colonized by Russia, which, I mean, it's we explained that our opinion, without going, for example, too much back into history, it's literally, and when we created the logo, because I was there when we created the logo, was people who come to our events mostly come from these countries. We do, as I said, have Scottish students and some Irish actually we had. That's probably more from like the West, but it would usually be from post-Soviet countries because that's the people who moved to UK for education. So that was the reason why those countries were involved. We explained it to you, so we said that it's in no way even related to really the history or anything related to like Soviet Union or anything like that. It's literally, those are, if you look at, we don't really have a statistics, but if we had a statistics of people from those countries, it would be from those countries. That's why we included them. So people feel included, it's not just Russian people, but people from those countries. And when we explained it to Yusa was like, actually, that's a good argument. It makes sense. They would return it back to the societies who complained, and it would be like that. But basically, every single argument they provide was just not enough to close the society. We couldn't speak about tea time.
What is tea time?
Tea time. Well, that was the only one I was not directly involved in, but I got lots of, some insights about it. So last year, was that?
Gossip.
Gossip. Tea time. So
YouTube loves gossip.
That's what the trending videos are all based on, especially from podcasts.
Yeah.
So basically, yet again, you have way more information about that. So just add something up or correct me if I'm wrong. But what happened was everything is wrong. Cancelled. So what happened was last year, I think that was in October, there was an event hosted in collaboration with one of the tea shops. It's like a tea shop / tea cafeteria, like a proper one located in Moscow. So what the main point of the event was there was a lecture, like a webinar hosted by, I think it was a woman who was the owner of this
tea,
of this tea shop, tea cafeteria. So there was a webinar where she was telling about their most popular teas, and during the webinar, the participants were provided with an opportunity to taste various teas, and she was also telling how to properly make tea.
So the owner of the tea shop was giving a webinar to you guys and provided you with samples to try.
Well,
it was
the samples we bought of the but I don't think it matters.
One of the members, he bought them in Russian and brought over here to Edinburgh. So it was very nice. Well, I mean, drinking tea is also like a big part of not only Russian but of many countries' culture. So of course, lots of people were very well tempted by an opportunity,
enthusiastic about the tea.
Exactly, they were very they were drinking enthusiastically. Let me tell you that I was one of them. And so
vodka has nothing on tea.
Exactly.
Sorry. So basically, the events finished, and then I think within a week,
like 2 weeks.
2 weeks after the event, the Russian Speak Society received a complaint from several societies that
it was an email from USA saying that the societies complained.
That we collaborated with the pro-governmental business who pays taxes to the Russian government and sponsors the missiles and the arms.
Because they were Russian citizens.
It's not even that. We didn't understand where this was coming from, because when you Google the company, it's just, obviously they pay tax in Russia because they are in Russia. It's how, unfortunately, the tax system works. But when we Googled the company, it was just tea company, nothing about it, nothing about them supporting the war, no statements, nothing. And we're like, okay, where is this coming from? And then, as it turned out, as Yusa told us, the reason how they connected them to the war supporters was because the main office of this company was located on a street or in a building, something. I think it was a street.
It was a street.
Street, which is called, it was Улица Армейская. What was it?
Something like militaristic. It had like a militaristic name. Militaristic name of the street.
It was the name of the street, which was not even changed from 2022 or even before that. The name of the street was for God, how long knows how long?
Probably after the revolution or something like that,
and
like in the beginning of 20th century.
And they said they based their argument on that. And Yusa contacted us, and we were like, we really don't know what to say this, because it's the name of the street. You can't change the name of the street in any country. And why would so basically that was their point, their argument. And then when Yusa realized it was just the name of the street, they were like, okay, this is silly. We're not responding to that.
Yeah.
So that's just some like examples.
So each time these accusations be put against you.
Mhm.
Yusa comes back to you. You explain it to Yusa,
Yeah.
and then Yusa says, "Okay, there's nothing here."
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
all of the conversations we had were directly with users. So all of the societies that had complaints and who complained, they were talking to us through USA, and I think we offered them an opportunity to have
Talk, yeah,
at some point. The amount of those complaints and accusations reached
Peak
very
level,
peak
yeah.
level, and we just decided to perhaps it might be in both in the interest of both of the sides, just to sit down together and have this conversation rather than just having those stressful email conversations and
Right.
just spreading anger,
Yeah.
which is
And did they
pointless.
have the conversation?
No.
So it was Yusa, it was winter, and Yusa just sort of, I think Yusa was kind of fed up themselves because they have a lot of societies issues,
have
because
lots
there are a
of
lot of
work to
societies in
do,
the
yeah.
University of Edinburgh.
Too many societies.
Too
if you
many,
ask me.
yeah.
Maybe.
Sometimes you look at Taylor Swift Society. Come on, guys.
There is what? There is
Yeah, there's Taylor Swift Society.
I'll sign up.
Do we get to meet her?
No.
Well, if we will, I'll be behaving just like Kanye did.
No.
The fans will understand.
Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
Can you imagine that? She was only 19 years old.
19.
Yeah, she was 19.
Anyways,
Cute.
so yeah, and it reached to winter, and then Yusu was just like, okay, guys, there's obviously no good communication going. Do you just want to sit down with each other and talk? We immediately said yes, because, I mean, we were always ready to talk throughout the whole year. The other societies didn't really respond to Yusu as far as we know. And then after winter, after this, like when it reached the peak moment and we're like, okay, we're ready to talk, no response, and that's when it quietened down as well. So yeah.
And when you talk about like you said and somebody else, do you know who that somebody else is?
We know, but I guess I think it is obvious, but I don't know if there is a point of naming each society, just because they're not here, they wouldn't be able to like voice their positions. But just to general name it, just any society who complain against us. I think maybe some people know who the societies
Yeah.
are.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
They will, certainly.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about like the members, right? You guys, from what I can tell, last year you put out like an official statement on the Russian-speaking society's official position on issues relating to Russian politics, foreign policy, etc. Do you feel like you also have a responsibility to vet your members? That seems kind of strange to me, but like, you know, you are getting a wide variety of people from Russian ethnicity, people, Russian citizens, etc. And I'm assuming because of that, you're going to have a wide variety of people with different viewpoints and different positions. Is there any fear, or not even fear, but just concern that you have somebody in the society who's not a committee member, but is just in the society because they're Russian, they want to do it, and then they say something outside of the society, a position that potentially could get you in trouble or that you disagree with, and then it comes back on you guys and, well, see, you're, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if this happens, logically speaking, I don't really understand why would that be a bad thing to us. We are not responsible. We cannot dictate people how to think about particular situations, especially when it comes to politics. We're a non-political organization. It is not in our interest to tell the people what's wrong, what's right, and what's wrong. Our only responsibility is during the socials make sure that everyone is safe, that nobody is being abused or assaulted, and we try our best that everyone feels as comfortable as they possibly can. Of course, when it comes, say, for example, to if you are a member of the society, then you need to understand what type, especially during this, in this circumstance we're currently at, we have lots of pressure and lots of responsibility. We need to outweigh our every word we say. So, of course, as a member of the committee, yes, of course, it is our responsibility to make sure that we say responsibly, like, you know, express our opinions and try not to offend anyone, no matter what their point of view is regarding various situations. When it comes to a regular member, we're all adults, we're all mature. It's their own choice to speak or not to speak about that. So I don't really think that it will be our place to tell them, to be quiet or not to be, especially when if it's outside if it's not during the socials, if it's just somewhere at some time.
I think many people, especially last year, forgot that we are a student society. We're not a organization. We're not we don't get paid, guys. So we don't
sponsor us.
We don't
have your sales, please.
We'll add our Instagram. No, we're just a society, and it's literally as it is, just a few sort of enthusiastic people who want to organize events for other people, and we don't represent every single person on the even the members. It's everyone, as Andrey said, is an adult. Everyone has first of all a right to free speech, which actually we do have in UK. So even if it's an opinion that you really disagree with, and even if it's a member who, for example, comes to an event and he's very pro-war, and obviously most people in the event are going to be against this, we don't have the facilities and like allowance to just say, oh no, you can't say, because he has that right to a free speech even if it's something you don't agree with. Obviously it's likely that he's not going to be welcomed at the events just in general, because most people are going to be against it, so no one's going to talk to the person that he's not going to feel welcomed. But as it is, it's an adult. Everyone has responsibility, right, and also responsibility to answer for the words. So he might say that something during the event, but then if there's backlash at him, that's backlash at him. We're not there to defend him or to condone him for what he says. If a member, for example, like that exists, and of
course, if they'll ask for help, we will help. In terms if there will be a certain, let's say, controversial situation.
Yeah.
If we're capable of, we'll offer certain.
As far as it goes, we organize events and we're responsible, as Andrey said, for safety, for physical safety, for just sort of those things. But everything else, you're an adult, you're responsible for what you're saying. Yeah. And it's not like, it's not a children's playground where we're the supervisor and we're like, no, don't say that. Yeah. That's not it.
That's, first of all, that was spoken like a true lawyer, so good job.
Yay, that degree pays off.
But when you talk about like the Russian-speaking societies, as I mentioned before, you guys had like an official position, and you said, okay, if one of the members, it's not really your job to like police them and say what they think, but the committee members, you do want to make sure that they're on board with like the general overview. So for those who like haven't read your manifesto or your statement, like just briefly, what is that like position?
No, I think with the committee, obviously there's more responsibility because you're working as a team and you're making social media posts, you're talking from sort of you're like a voice of the society. So obviously there's way more responsibility when it comes to committee members, but also with the committee members is as far as it can go. So for example, there's a responsibility to communicate with each other and to make sure that everything is talked throughout. So there is no miscommunication within the committee and something that one person says, the other person doesn't reflect, and there's disagreement. So there's a responsibility to communicate with each other and make sure you're on the same page. And if that's not the case, then sort of solve it out. But there can be always extreme cases where, for example, one committee member does something or says something and it takes you by surprise because you didn't talk about it before, you weren't aware of it. So, because there's sort of as much as you can control it. You can control the conversation within the group, within the committee, but you can, again, control the action of the person. So if everyone acts responsible and everyone understands their role, nothing bad can happen because you talk between each other. But if one person decides to do something sort of over the line, you can stop them, which I think is a problem within, any, for example, board in a company or something. Like you have this responsibility to talk to each other, but it's as far as it can go. The limit of controlling people within a group is as far as you can take it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought he was going to say something.
I have nothing to add.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just this is a little bit of a tough question, but so obviously we're in the UK, right? And we're not in Russia. You guys are not, part of the Russian government, like you said. But I do think prompted by, recent events in the world, right? That I wouldn't say there's like animosity toward Russia or Russians, but I definitely have noticed and experienced that, maybe some people view Russia in a more negative light now in the UK. Do you feel like as members of the Russian speaking society that part of your mission or your aim is to kind of portray the positive elements of Russian society or Russian culture?
Well, we're foreigners. We're not British. We are guests here. I think even despite the very fact that we are members of the Russian-speaking society, and namely the committee members of it, I think it's everyone's individual's responsibility to remember that when you're abroad, the locals will base their overall perception. Unfortunately, the overall perception of the entire culture will be based on your behavior, what you say, how you behave, what you do. So I think it's just not. I think it's like common responsibility of every nation, especially as the nation representatives who go somewhere abroad. It's for the sake of just making sure that you will not represent in a wrong way your own culture. So of course, considering the very fact that we are not British citizens, we don't have British citizenships. We are, especially as Russians, we are being at some point monitored, and perhaps some people might actually look way more precisely at what we say, how we behave, what we do. So I think it's a great opportunity to change some of the people's minds that not all the Russians are supporting war, or for example are aggressive or are heavy vodka drinkers and stuff like that.
There's nothing wrong with being a heavy vodka drinker.
Of course not. Of course. I mean, yeah. The joke that came to my mind might not be very appropriate to this conversation, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. Of course not. What I'm trying to say is that
stereotypes.
Yeah. When it comes to all the type of stereotypes, it is our chance to, even if we manage to change one person's mind, that's already something, because this person is also part of the society. He will speak to his friends, to his family members. This is how the chain reaction works and where it starts, just by little steps. So I think, and of course, because we have this unique opportunity to share this point of view, because we're representing Russian-speaking society. We have not solid amount, but we have to some extent solid amount of subscribers through social media who are following us constantly. We will be having nice numbers of attendances to our socials. So when it comes to such topics, I think it will be very worth noting that we are foreigners here, we're guests, so we need to be respectful and behave as respectful guests. Maybe it will not, at the end of the day, maybe it will not change anything, but at least we'll try, and it will certainly be for the good.
No, I think I agree with everything.
Okay. Another tough question. In my mind, right? Well, okay. Obviously, you guys are the Russian-speaking society, and so you're a country. You're a society for all people in various countries that speak the Russian language. Obviously, one of the largest countries outside of Russia that speaks the Russian language is Ukraine. Do you plan or hope to do any collaboration with the Ukrainian society, or do you have any members from Ukraine in the society?
In terms of events we tried last year, we actually had a few planned for us from our side of view, but our first event failed because the Ukrainian society didn't really want to collaborate with us, and they kind of made a point of it in a very harsh manner. And we just kind of, I mean, we've tried, we communicated with them, it didn't work, and actually us and the Spanish society as well, because the event we organized planned was a ball, got some hate out of it, if you could say, if you can frame it like that. So I don't see the point this year. We've really tried. Last year we sort of reached out. It didn't get to anywhere. We were rejected in not the most polite manner. So I just don't see this year to try again. I don't see the point if there's no communication going. We do still, obviously, we actually do have people from Ukraine coming to our events, maybe less than before. But we have friends from Ukraine, and it's not like, because there was an unpleasant experience of communicating with the committee last year, we're all of a sudden against the Ukrainian society. No, we still happily, invite Ukrainian people to come to our events, which still happens. But just in terms of the committee, it's just seems a little bit pointless, if I can add it like that.
From my point of view, it's my first year of being a member of the committee. I mean, we share lots of similar cultural aspects. Maybe, yet again, committees change every year. Maybe entirely, maybe partly. Time goes on, and I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps this year we will be having some type of development, and maybe we will even end up organizing something together. We can still do some really nice events, which could be based on some of the, let's say, mutual holidays, like public holidays, celebrations we have together, just to get more people connected between each other, and as a gesture of being a non-political organization. Of course, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. It's just an unfortunate situation that, and please do not understand us in the wrong way, that if, say, the last year's committee of the Ukrainian society didn't want to collaborate with us, it doesn't mean that every member of the Ukrainian society wouldn't want it either. So it's just, let's say, not an unlucky year with that. If something comes up from our side or from their side, of course, we're open to various discussions. And I think, coming back to this question regarding collaborations, I also forgot to mention that when it comes to societies that represent certain cultures or ethnic groups, if those cultures are somehow historically or just originally related to each other, it might be easier to do certain collaborations rather than doing with completely different societies, in my opinion. So maybe.
I sort of disagree with that, because I think a good experience was our collaboration with the Spanish society. We do not come from similar backgrounds at all, but we had an amazing ball organized just because, again, sometimes you want events where people can connect, but sometimes you just want to have fun. They wanted a ball, we wanted a ball. We're like, hey, let's collaborate, make it cheaper for each other, make it more people coming. So kind of yes and no. I think sometimes it's actually not that hard to organize if both sides wants to collaborate, it's not that hard to make that collaboration happen.
Well, I resign.
Okay.
I saw a very funny movie recently. It was called Don't Mess with the Zohan.
I think I've heard of it, but I've never watched it.
It's an Adam Sandler movie, and I'll tell you why I'm bringing it up in a second. But basically, in the movie, Adam Sandler is this like crazy, powerful, strong Israeli counter-terrorist, right? And he's like, just has like superpowers.
Oh, now I remember. Yeah,
basically, but he's also like a total goofball. And so he's like fighting all these, Palestinian and Gaza terrorists, or that's how they portrayed it in the movie. And then he decides, you know what, I don't really want to do this anymore. I want to go to the US to cut hair. And so he ends up working in he like changes his identity. He pretends he's from Australia, and he ends up working in a Palestinian hairdresser salon. And the whole movie,
I think he also falls in love with
he
one of
falls in love
with one of the
with
Palestinian hairdressers.
yes,
Yeah.
who's actually the sister of the main Palestinian terrorist who he's
Yeah.
been fighting, his main
Yeah.
rival.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all this to say, they're kind of in this Israeli Palestinian neighborhood, and they're kind of fighting, and they have this like big scene at the end where they're like, the showdown, and then they kind of come to this conclusion where like we're in the, we're not in Israel, we're not in, the Middle East anymore, we're in the US. Well, you don't need to like fight. There's no reason to do this. We're not here to kill each other. This is, the US, a separate thing. We can all be friends, and we don't have to like continue what's happening over there in this place. And the reason I brought it up was because
it's a nice movie.
It's a great
a good movie,
and it's hilarious, and you should see it. But also, to me, it kind of brought up this point of like, okay, we're in the UK. We're not in, on the border between Russia and Ukraine, right? There's no reason to me that we should, there should be a continuation of what's happening all the way over there in the UK in a totally separate society. None of you guys are fighting each other here, right? It just seems like from an outsider perspective that it would be a nice thing. And I'm not saying like it's anybody's fault here, but it just seems like a nice thing that, come together and say, okay, I know this thing is happening over there and it's a terrible and brutal situation, but here in the UK in a separate society, we're, just like brother and sister. And I just wanted to get your kind of take on that whole idea of like being in a separate place, a separate country, a totally different place, and kind of dropping those existing tensions that are all the way.
Yeah.
I think the reason why some people would disagree with this position is kind of like, especially from maybe the other side, is when you think, oh, so you've moved abroad, you've escaped your country, and now, you can just forget about all that's happening there and pretend we're all friends. At least that's what I actually heard from people. But I personally agree with it in terms of, obviously we don't have to forget or just like try to forget what's happening there or ignore the situation. Or, if someone says, oh, I'm pro-war, you can say, well, he said in UK, it's fine. He's not actually there fighting. Obviously, in terms of that way, you can't just ignore that. And I think that's why many people think so we're in the UK now, let's not, I'm not supporting this, you're not supporting this, let's just be okay in terms of communication. And I think many people react to it like, oh, so you're just trying to forget everything that's happening there, you're just trying to ignore it. So I think that's why many people have like an immediate sort of, what is it called, like a backing reaction from this point of perspective.
Like a backlash.
Backlash, yeah. But in reality, I agree with this position, because if both sides agree on the same opinion based on the war, and they both don't support it, they don't contribute to it, they don't condone, like they don't is condone when you support or when you don't support?
You don't. That's a good question. Let's just say they don't support it.
Yeah, basically, they don't praise, if they don't support the war, then that's what this position means, that there is no point, especially when because what happened last year, we're just a university society, and it almost felt during some times as if I represent a political party and I have to respond for the actions of the Russian government. And at some point we're like, wait, we're a society. Why are we in UK just came here to enjoy the education, very nice education? Should we continue bringing on here? So in that terms of I agree, but then I understand why some people react negatively to this position.
I think after all, it's all about how affected people are by the war, and how much how severely they're affected by it. And from my personal experience, I had some opportunities to have conversations to people coming from Ukraine who moved out of the country way before 2014 or way before the war in 2022 started, and still they took it very personally, and sometimes personal in my personal opinion, not very let's say rationally. Perhaps they refuse to speak Russian. They refuse to talk to all of their Russian friends or people who were coming from Russia, who they knew were coming from Russia. And so after all, we'll be having lots of opinions on this topic.
Yeah.
But I think that objectively speaking, if both of us, let's say an average Ukrainian student, an average Russian student came here for the sake of getting just education, not to saying that we are pro or anti-war and spread our opinions, then of course why not to take an advantage of that we are not involved directly into the war, luckily, and why not to try to maybe become better human beings, because after all, believe it or not, but we're the future of this world, and I think it's very crucial, especially at this age, at this point, to give our best to make sure that we will not make the same mistakes as that were already made. Unfortunately, history repeats itself, but I mean, there's always hope for the change.
In my mind, right, you have to stop the fighting in here and in here.
Yeah.
If you want to stop the fighting out there. But, I also am speaking from an outsider perspective, so I don't know.
I understand why it's hard. I can understand why it's hard. There's been lots of internal conflicts in Russia in the 90s, in the early 2000s as well, which I wasn't directly involved with them. I wasn't even born when all of those conflicts occurred, most of them in the 90s, because I was born in 2000. But still, there was some time when I took them way, perhaps, to like personally, and was very hard for myself to, behave rationally, assess them rationally. So I can, based on this, I can understand why some of the Ukrainians perhaps struggle to, to kind of like stop this fight in their head, in their hearts, especially when it comes to just a regular conversation with a person who is not responsible for this occasion. But yeah, it just requires lots of work.
Go ahead.
If I can just quickly, in that terms, I think a benefit of like the way you said a position from the outsider's perspective is because when you actually sort of come to UK to study, you're a bit isolated from everything that's happening in your countries. That actually gives you a bit of a more clear head. So in that sense, there is actually an opportunity to sort of clear your mind and your heart when you're studying in UK, because you're away from everything that's happening. You're looking at it a bit more rationally, and you're communicating with people from both Ukraine and Russia, and you're able to form a point of view without any influence coming to your mind. So in that way, yeah.
I mean, I'll give you like an interesting example. So my dad's family is Greek, right? But I'm kind of 2 generations out from being in Greece, but like I have family in Greece, right? And they are super antagonistic towards Turkey, right? Because the Ottoman Empire occupied them, and they had years of occupation and colonization, and so they really don't like Turkey and actively like hate it. And me, I'm kind of removed from that, so I don't totally understand like why do we hate Turkey so much. But then also like knowing the history, when it's not an individual, I'm like, oh yeah, I hate Turkey. Turkey sucks, and any like time there is to like bash Turkey, I'll take it. But then like at the same time, I'll also have like Turkish friends, and I get along with Turkish people, and like we'll just talk like whatever.
But when you go back to Greece to your relatives, then you are
then I
against Turkey.
pretend that I also hate Turkey,
because you need to sleep at you're sleeping at their place, you eat at their table, right?
And I gotta eat too.
Fair enough.
But it's funny.
It's all about survival.
Yeah, right. But it's interesting how this thing kind of works, like because you guys are are like, okay, there's a level like, okay, you're removed from the country, meaning you're like, you've moved, now you're in the UK. But it's also interesting how like these internal hatreds and conflicts and animosity continues through like generation, and it makes me wonder like how far do you have to go before like you can just be a Ukrainian can see a Russian can see a Ukrainian, or an Israeli can see a Palestinian, and a Palestinian can see Iranian, and just not think not have some kind of like, okay, I have animosity toward this person, I'm mad at this person for what their country did to my people, etc.
I think it's actually like a very good example, because as you might always have that sort of like love, or I don't know, this positive feeling towards your nation. You feel like, when you're in Greece, you feel like, okay, yeah, no to Turkey, and because you're together, you're a community, you come from that background, you might always have that. But then it's important that in your individual view, you're able to think rationally, and when you actually meet a person from Turkey, you're not just going to, start screaming and shouting and beating them up or whatever, because that rational individual opinion exists. So yes, you might have that sort of love for your nation or protecting it, but as long as you have the individual rationality, it's always going to prevent you from just being angry at random people who don't even fall within that background of what was happening in the past.
By the way, for any of my Greek relatives that are listening, Zito Ilada.
Something about Turkey.
No. I just said long live Greece.
Right.
Zita,
you say on the Independence Day, and it's kind of like the.
Oh, right.
Cool.
Yeah.
We don't have an Independence Day. No, we don't. I was just going to say that you always, coming back to this topic, you always need to separate nation and the government. In many cases, the government let's say the government does not always represent the nation's interests. In some cases, the government just does something for the sake of its own prosperity and its own materialistic goals. And after all, there are no bad nations; they're just bad people. So you cannot, as I said, when it coming to this responsibility of as a foreigner, how to behave, what to say, and because you're representing your own country, your own culture, some people will judge the entire nation based just on one person's behavior. Some of them will not, and this is perhaps something that we will never get rid of. Because on one hand, of course, there is always this talks how to fight such. We can say that this is some sort of an ignorance to some extent, how to fight it well by increasing education. But in some cases, in some governments' perspective, they don't really want to people be very well educated, and it's a very controversial topic. But I just want to conclude with it that no matter what happens, you need to always separate the government from the nation. Not every, let's say, Russian supports or does not support the Russian government. Not every Ukrainian person supports or does not support the Ukrainian government. It is always you need to assess the situation in a bit broader way.
This has been a very serious conversation. I want to take a brief moment to give you guys a chance to lighten the mood a little bit, and I thought it would be since we're talking about stereotypes and whatnot, I thought it would be interesting to kind of go over some Russian stereotypes and for you guys to kind of say a little bit about them and debunk them, or say that they're actually true, just to give our viewers kind of some interesting and lighthearted content.
We all have bears at home. We drink vodka in the morning and we play balalaika every single day. It's all correct.
Yeah.
No.
I personally, my bike was stolen twice by a bear. So it's a very severe issue in Russia. So, yeah, and there are to this day, there is no such locks that they will not break. So
You're not
That's
DJ
it.
Khaled. Stop it.
So the vodka stereotype, is true or not true?
it is true. I started drinking last December. That was my first time I tried alcohol for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very pious man.
Sorry.
You're a very pious man.
So yeah, by the time I started uni, I remember having all those socials with my basketball team, and I remember I had this guy. He was Macedonian, but he was coming from Canada. I think he was born and raised in Canada, but his origins are from Macedonia. So Macedonians, they are like Southern Slavic. It's a Southern Slavic nation, which was a little bit influenced by Ottoman Empire.
It's not Macedonia.
What?
Macedonia.
Yeah, but I think it's Macedonia, isn't it?
So there's like, not to get into the thing, but basically like there's Macedonia, like originally
Yeah.
is a region in Greece, in northern Greece. And the country that's northern Macedonia is like not
It's a
really
Muslim
Macedonia.
country,
It's
isn't it?
not
No.
because the Greeks have a lot of beef with that name because first of all,
Oh no, I stepped in this field of mines.
it's
yeah?
just that like
minefield.
Macedonia is Greek,
Right.
It's a Greek region.
Uh-huh.
It happens to be the region that my family's from, and it's like a big it's like a big part of. This was not. I didn't anticipate this being in the video.
That was
but
a bad example.
Anyway, so
I had
basi-
so many nations, but
but-
why
but-
I chose this guy?
But basically, the name like Northern Macedonia, the name Macedonia implies that they have some claim to like Greek Macedonian culture and heritage, like Alexander the Great, like Aristotle, like Cleopatra.
Right. Yeah.
In reality, they're a totally different ethnic group and have nothing to do with like Macedonia. So that's why there's like beef around the name. But actually, the Greek name of Macedonia is Macedonia.
Okay.
So closer.
in Russian as well, Macedonia. Yeah. So, well, anyways,
Pick a different country.
So he was very enthusiastic. He was very enthusiastically involved in all of the drinking games. And when he asked me why do I not drink, why the drink I was sipping was water, I just told him that I don't drink. I've never tried it, and he was very, very much surprised, asking me, "Are you not Russian then, or what?" So, and I had lots of such encounters with, especially coming to the university, because university, especially freshers here, it's for some reason all that it is associated with are just some, going out, clubs, bars, pubs, lots of drinking, and yeah, even when we had the initiations with my basketball team, we had certain let's say drinking games as well. I wasn't involved in them because I just didn't want to. I didn't want to drink at all. And yeah, so lots of people were kind of like still joking about whether I'm a true Russian or not, which and this joke was just based on the stereotype.
Right.
And the very fact that I was also like, I was living in Finland for 8 years before I moved to Scotland. Finland is also well known for drinking culture. Finns, they love drinking, and not all of them, but it's a part of it's to some extent it's also it's a stereotype about Finnish culture, especially among Scandinavian nations. And they were like, so hold on, you're Russian, you lived in both Russia and Finland, you don't drink. What is this? How's that possible? So that was perhaps the only stereotype that I encountered myself with. There was also another funny conversation I had because I also played for the University of Edinburgh ice hockey team, so we had one of the socials on my third year of uni. There was this girl. She was, because we have both the the uni team, we have also the female team. So we had, because we always trained, we used to train together, practice together. So we had also a mutual social. So there was first time we met, so she found out that I was Russian. So she started asking me about like, is it true that most of the Russians who live outside of Russia, they're spies, or their parents are former KGB agents and stuff? And no, we're not, but we're watching you anyways. So this, of course, and I thought at the first time I thought she was joking, but she was quite serious about those questions. So I presume that some of those type of stereotypes are still persistent to some extent. Mm-hmm. So these were the only examples I was kind of like directly encountered with the like.
But do you think it's true or not true?
No,
I cannot tell. No, it's of course the stereotypes they are based on something, right? So it is not something that comes out of the blue. So and of course the alcoholism is one of the biggest problems in the Russian society, of course, and even if for example we take a look at the modern movies, series, we were just recently talking about that with Polina, that you just don't see a table during the celebration with no alcohol at all. It's somehow it's just like so deeply it's so deeply put into lots of European cultures that it's hard to get rid of it. And of course lots of people know that it's not good for your health. There's nothing bad in just like having one shot during some celebration, or a glass of wine, a glass of champagne and stuff like that. But yeah, and so I think that times change and people hopefully, well, I mean, our generation based, I mean, of course, it's hard for me to assess because I have such a limited, circle of friends. I cannot, based on them, I cannot have the full expectations of the entire country. Of course not, but I still hope for this. So I hope for the best, and I hope that this drinking stereotype is slowly turning into vanishing.
A couple more. Russians don't like to smile, or don't smile.
I think that comes from we don't have like small
Reasons.
talk.
We don't have reasons to smile.
No, we don't have like what is called small talk, which is popular, I think, well, definitely in Britain and probably US and some maybe West European countries. You don't talk to someone just to talk. Well, that's a bad way for it. But like, I don't know, you meet your colleague, and unless you're either friends or you have something to talk about work, you're not just going to talk about weather or stuff. Well, I think...
How are you feeling?
How you're feeling.
For example, the question, how are you?
How are you?
Here it's in English culture or Anglo-Saxonian cultures, it's a form of
It's like
speech.
saying hi.
It's a rhetorical question. You don't necessarily need to answer it.
And I've been
or how
following
you doing?
it for 8 years.
Yeah.
8 years, they ask me how I am. I start to answer, and the person walks away, and I'm like, do you not want to know?
Yeah.
But basically, the thing is, you don't have that in Russia. So it's like, they're not just going to walk past you and smile or say, how are you? Just make any sort of sound or something like that, unless you're actually planning to have a conversation. So I guess it's not a stereotype. It's true. They're not just going to smile or talk for no reason, but does not mean that the person is not friendly. It's just how communication is different. It's
you need
on
a
different
purpose
to talk.
From my personal experience, when you just walk on the streets and you see someone smiling, then there is it's unusual. It's very unusual. I remember I had a very funny, just directly related to this, why Russians don't smile. So I was a couple of years ago, I was in Russia. So we were in the bus with a friend of mine. So we were going to this hospital. He needed to get some papers for the army because he was about to go to the army next summer. So because I just arrived, came back to Moscow, I offered him like, do you want me to join you? Can I join you? He was like, yeah, let's go. So we were in this bus. I was in a brilliant mood, DJ Khaled's album just recently released. I was just, I was in heaven. And so we were joking, laughing, having a good time. And then at some point, this lady, so she just turns around, looks at me and asks me, why are you laughing at? Why are you laughing? Like, what are you smiling about? Why are you laughing so loud? And then she just turned back.
She told you to stop?
Yeah. She was very, based on, by the way she asked this question, she was very surprised, as if it was unusual. So, of course, I cannot say that my overall feeling was ruined and my mood was ruined, because within a minute, I asked my friend for a chewing gum. He said, I have none, and then just some. Then I could feel that a hand was laid on my shoulder. I turned around, there's this, big man, wearing some type of hunting jacket, hunting pants. He just offers me there you go, son. Yeah, that was it's a very interesting contrast of
contrast. Yeah.
Can you say that in English?
Contrast.
Yeah. But as I was saying, smiling, laughing, it's a not very usual thing. Yeah.
I think it also comes with the fact that most people, especially in post-Soviet countries, are tense, very tense. It's been, hard, especially older generation. They hadn't had the easiest sort of destiny in their life. They had very hard lives, working very hard throughout the whole
Mhm.
life. They're just used to being tense, used to waiting for
Oh yeah, they were looking for the double
like a
meaning,
double meaning in
behind
everything, you know,
as
used
if
to
everyone
being
tries to scam each other.
scam
Really?
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's so,
If
so interesting.
Yeah.
so
yeah.
I think it also comes from that. You're just like, what are you smiling about? Don't smile. Like, don't,
Yeah. Well, like when it comes to some serious types of conversations, when a person smiles, it means that he lies, or you're just you become less trust. He becomes less
Yeah.
trustworthy.
There's like a saying in like English, like you're waiting for the other shoe to fall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Means you're
essentially.
waiting for like the bad side to come.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
always and that's like especially of older generations. You're always waiting for something like bad or unexpected to happen,
yeah.
so you're always tense. So probably that's why.
So I was gonna kind of go into the next superstition, which is like Russians are very superstitious.
Yes.
Yeah, most of them are. Yeah.
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 I don't know. I can't say where it comes from. Probably like folklore. Is that how you call it?
Well, folklore.
Yeah.
Of course. It has like, wow, the roots of it are
Many centuries.
very, very too long to even find where it comes from. It's just, I think it just comes from, you know, from the times when it wasn't even Russia. It wasn't even existing yet. We had, you know, those like various like kingdoms, like villages where the locals were living, and you know, they started noticing certain patterns. For example, when a entirely black cat crosses the road, then something bad gonna happen if you keep going the same road, for example.
Yeah.
And maybe based on those patterns, it just became
Yes,
inherent.
yeah.
Like
Why it stayed, we don't know, but
Yeah.
it just stayed.
Yeah.
It's true.
So like,
Yeah.
give me an example of like a superstition then.
Yeah.
I have Will.
Go.
I have this one my grandmother told me about, and I understand that it's a superstitious thing, but it just became a habit to me. So whenever I say I leave my apartment or whatever place I'm leaving, I forget something, so I have to return back, I need to look in the mirror and smile. Otherwise, there'll be a bad luck or
You
something
need to
like
smile.
that.
I don't smile.
Well, I
just
smile.
look in the
I
mirror.
smile a lot.
See, even for example, my mom had a superstition that you can't put. I hope I didn't do it. No, you can't put your bag on the floor because then you're not gonna have money.
Is that why you're back?
And see, like I'm programmed into that. But like when I ask my
Mine
friends,
is on the chair. Oh.
when I ask my friends, like some people know, some people are like, "What the hell is that?" So even between the Russian communities, you have different superstitions, different things that people believe in. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
What was I didn't catch it. What was the mirror thing?
So when you forget something, say you're leaving your apartment, you forget your headphones, you need to return, you need to come back. So before leaving the apartment again, you need to look into the mirror and smile to yourself.
Yeah.
Make this eye contact, smile, you know, do this.
No,
And
that's
then-
just
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, the next one, just two more. The next one is Russian humor is very dark.
Mm.
I think it became very dark just recently. I think
No.
yeah. Well, it depends. It depends, like the topics you're joking about.
It's dark, but it's like it's I don't know how to say astronomy. Like
wow, it's like
twisted, but in a way like intellectually twisted. Like it's so like you need to read into it, and it's just a joke is not like I think it's true, especially because I can base it on older generations, like my parents and grandfathers. They have that sense of, sometimes, not always, you don't just joke dark humor, but sometimes you'll be sitting at a table, everyone's talking, and then that one person says the dark humor joke, and at first you don't even understand it, like what does that mean? And then you read into it and you're like, oh my God, and you laugh, but then you also feel horrible. But I think it's true because I notice it among older generations as well.
Yeah, maybe some of the topics were not very popular to joke about. They just became not popular, but you know, people started to joke about them more and more just quite recently.
Yeah, probably more is recent. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's very sarcastic. Very sarcastic, like sarcasm. I think that's the basement of the basement, the foundation of the Russian sense of humor, shall I say?
Yeah.
Irony as well, I think. Yeah.
The last one, tracksuits.
Oh, they're just super comfy, man. They're super stylish and comfy. I mean, that's all.
Adidas tracksuits. Is it true?
Adidas. Well, the thing is with Adidas is because during the when the Soviet Union was and when during the Cold War, I mean, the American companies, they were not just supplying anything to Russia, and just because Adidas was, I think the founder of Adidas, he was born in the Eastern Germany, if I'm not mistaken.
He's definitely German.
He is German. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can write this in the comment, but remember to subscribe first and press.
Oh yes, I forgot to say subscribe, please.
If I'm not mistaken, he was born in the Eastern Germany, and because during the Second World War, Germany was split like half, same as Berlin. So there was like Eastern Germany, Western Germany. Berlin was split into two parts. One of them was like pro-American, the other one was pro-Soviet Union. So I think because of that, when Adidas was founded, just because, you know, the overall production of goods, it was not, we have this another stereotype that everything that comes from abroad is better than our own domestic products.
But that's a stereotype within Russia, not for foreigners.
Within Russia,
for us.
Yeah. For the Russians, it comes from Soviet Union because after the World War, lots of the factories, they were predominantly oriented towards producing armory and something related to military, but not like let's say domestic technologies and something. We had to catch up with that. So because of that, the overall quality was way worse than the foreign one, especially if we speak about, let's say, German technology or Japanese domestic technology. So anyways, when it came to the athleticism, because sports was one of the main, let's say, tools of propaganda, like there was huge competition of it. And of course, the Soviet Union national teams, they needed really good quality equipment when it came to shoes, tracksuits, and everything, clothing. And Adidas, I mean, Adidas had no problems at all with, you know, supplying this to Soviet Union. So I think there were, and of course, it was very expensive. It was super expensive. And so during Soviet Union, only very rich or wealthy people actually could wear and own Adidas tracksuit. Lots of them was brought from abroad. And but in the 90s, you know, when the Soviet Union collapsed and the borders were open, I guess it already had this kind of like brand image that it only, you know, the wealthy and rich people were able to wear it and afford it. Maybe that's why lots of people started, you know, buying and bringing over, like importing Adidas tracksuits, and then it just throughout time became part of the culture, I think. And Adidas just in generally, well, before the war started and they had to leave the market, it just had a better, let's say, business relationship with the Russian market. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any other stereotypes that I missed that you need to get out?
No, I don't think so.
I'm trying to think. It's very hard for me because, I mean, last time I was in Russia was 2 years ago, so I struggled to come up with, but I mean, you caught almost the main ones. The main ones, yeah.
Good. Well, thank you guys so much for this conversation. I really enjoyed it. This was great. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button.
Yeah.
Do it right now.
Do it right now, or the KGB will come after you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or after us, so please do that. Before, can I just mark this? So I think after this podcast, we'll be expecting lots of complaints from Taylor Swift Society. No. That was just an example. Okay, we have nothing against you guys. You are awesome.
I'm actually a big fan of T Swift.
I am as well. T Swift.
That's what we would call her in the US.
I don't really think that Beyonce's clip was way better. So, you know, that's what Kanye said.
The what?
When he pulled up on the stage, when the Taylor Swift was awarded with this award, he said, "Your album is amazing, but Beyonce's music clip was way better," or something like that. Or album. I'm not sure what he was talking about. He was drunk. And that's Kanye.
But yeah, anyway, thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us.
Opportunity.
It was really fun.
Yeah, I hope the audience, you got something out of this. And yeah, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey there. If you like this video, please remember to hit the subscribe and like button if you want to support us and to stay up to date on all our latest videos, which we release daily. And if you want to be a guest on this show, you can find our contact page in the description. Thank you.